And I need to get live on Zoom. Woo! It has been a wild ride this morning. Okay, let's get this lined up. There we go. There we go. They're fighting with me. Okay, there we go. All right. So, good message today, regardless how I show up. Zoom is fighting with me, so give me a second here. There we go. All right. We are going live. So, take a nice deep breath. And
recording in progress.
We are going to get this show on the road. So, how many of you have ever been violated? Violated in that someone has done you wrong. You get frustrated when you're in traffic and people are driving like lunatics or not driving at all. Get my girls in here. All right, and let me just do one more thing here. See if I can do this quick. Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. I got Miss Vicky and Miss Laura in the house. I think I will have others as well, but I just need to do some housekeeping here. Let me just do that. I was shot out of a cannon this morning. So bear with me, but good message for you all today. So let me get to it. So let me ask you again, for those of you that have just joined me in my Zoom, how many of you have been violated? Somebody did you wrong. Somebody was talking behind your back. All right, we are good to go here. Sorry for this slow start. Let me just pause this so that we don't have two of me. Okay, here we go. All right, good morning, ladies. Good morning, good morning. Bit of a delayed start this morning, and regardless how I'm showing up, we got a good message. So we're going to just dive into this morning. So the question is, have you been violated? Have you been thrown under the rug? Have you had people talking behind your back? Have you struggled with that? I struggled with that for a very, very long time. And what's really funny is my terminology has been very different than what I'm going to share with you today, but this is science-backed and it's pretty amazing. My terminology was, they know not what they do. They know not what they do. Papa gave me that when I was dealing with my family. And, you know, it was one of those where I was just beating my head against the wall. It was just terrible, you know, very low place, trying to heal, very stressed, and I hear very clearly in my head, they know not what they do. And I'm like, you know, wow, that is revolutionary, really, because if you think about that, what did that do for me? That enabled me to step back and go, as you guys see me do so frequently, the likelihood is really there. They're working out of bitter places. They're working out of their own hurts. They're working out of, you know, their twisted view on things. And that is not just describing my family, but that's describing a lot of the world. So my reverse on that was, okay, so, you know, they know not what they do, but I have full control over what I can do. So I've really been working out of that space for a very long time, since 2016, and it has been absolutely life-giving in that I was able to find myself in that process, because I was no longer defined by their inability to see my worth. I was no longer defined by their dysfunction. And that's really important, because we allow those things to own us. And I haven't really had, well, yeah, I have. I've had other situations where I've had to practice that over the last 9 years, but I had a recent one, and it was it's just funny how God orchestrates things. And you know, I know this lesson, so I didn't stay stuck in this place long, but I processed it. But I also purchased a book like 2 weeks ago, just out of curiosity to read it. And I'm going to share that with you guys this morning. I'll put that in the chat, but I'll also say it out loud for everybody else. It is faithledhealing.com/let-them. And I will share the process with you guys. So here's the thing. When we are violated, regardless what science says, I also know how the body processes things. So I want to remind you guys that while you are going through situations where you might be being violated, you might, you know, have people not understanding your direction in life, or what you are choosing to embark on your life, because got to remember, this is your life and we are entitled to that. It's our life, and not everybody's going to understand that all the time. You know, like I've shared before, when we went off grid, people did not understand. People did not understand at all. They were betting against us, even family. So, mine. But anyway, we have to process our feelings. We, in this world today, so many were taught to shove your emotions. Oh, suck it up, buttercup, or toughen up. Don't cry. You're stronger than that. So what do? We stuff. We stuff. I see Laura's got one too. You know, we've heard these things. And what that has caused us to do is to be afraid of sharing our emotions. And we need to share our emotions, not with the world, but with ourselves. We need to experience them. We need to feel them. You know, being violated is not fun. Being misunderstood is not fun. I was misunderstood my whole life, and I will probably remain misunderstood the rest of my life, which is fine. I beat to my own drum, and I know that I am my peculiar self, and I realize I've been that a long time. We are supposed to be peculiar. We are supposed to be unique. And, you know, that's the other thing the world wants, is everybody to be cloned. We're all supposed to be the same. We're all supposed to listen the same. We're all supposed to march the same. We're all supposed to do the same. And that's not that's not biblical. We need to be peculiar. We need to be unique. We need to be the special people that we were created to be. And so we aren't going to be understood. There's going to be conflict. Sometimes the ones that love us the most understand us the least, which is just funny, and that's okay. And that's just the truth. But the thing is, you know, in a lot of instances, we can be misunderstood but still be loved. And we need to understand and gain our power back. And that is exactly what I did when Papa gave me the "they know not what they do." That enabled me to rise above the situation and look down on it. And that was extremely powerful, because then that allowed me, from a much higher view, to realize that there's no point in me stooping to their level. There's no point in me trying to explain, because they're just not going to understand. So just let them. Okay? Let them have their views. Let them have their dysfunction. Let them stew over crazy things. Let them misunderstand me. But let me now be above that and be who I'm called to be. Be bigger than that. Be able to look past that and not be affected with it. And by letting me do my thing, I'm now not above them. I'm not below them. I'm right with them. And despite their dysfunction, I can still love them. I can still respect them. I can still treat them well and continue to live my life, because I just took my power back. And that's exactly what I've been doing for the last 9 years. However, in reading this book, because it's really funny, like I said, I purchased it like 2 weeks ago, maybe even more. And I felt nudged to read it. And I started reading it like 3 days ago. Okay, I purchased it January 18th. I wanted to look. I was just curious. Obviously, time goes a lot faster than I realized. Okay, but so I purchased that 3 months ago. Didn't look at it, but was I love how Papa works, because look at it this way. Papa provided me with the tools that correlated with what I need to teach and what I'm experiencing. And I know others are as well. I witnessed that this week. Mr. Itty Bitty. I love it. Miss Vicky's got her little dog that fits in your hand. Pretty much. We got, let's see, I stay silent to protect myself mostly and to protect others' feelings, but what that does is hurt me 110%. Amen. And you don't, and here's the thing, you can still stay silent. You can still stay silent. That's the beautiful thing. But you don't need to do it in a way that you are hurting yourself. You can release it. And that is exactly what this book, Let Them, teaches. And it is science-backed. And I'm living proof because I did the same thing, just using different terminology. And when we let them be them, whether it's in dysfunction, ignorance, stupidity, whatever, you know, there's a lot of terms we could use, but let them be angry. Let them have a meltdown. And you can be silent. Silence is golden. Silence is a beautiful thing because you know why? They get really confused when you don't engage, because a lot of times what they're looking for is engagement. They want to draw you into their drama. So silence is an absolutely beautiful thing, because when you don't have anything to say, they don't know what to say. And the conversation does one of two things. Either it ends or they fight with themselves. And that's entertaining. That's entertaining. That's pure entertainment. So perspective plays a role in this as well. But you're absolutely right in the regard that it is hurting you 110% because you're still hanging on to those hurts. You're still hanging on to maybe the energy they're giving off. I'm an empath, so I struggle greatly with the energy that people put off. And that started very young in my life because my home was always a stressful mess. You know, there was conflict that we didn't understand, but I felt it. And it was terrible. And I don't do well in those settings. And that causes me internal stress. That causes my nervous system to do all kinds of crazy things. However, when I learned this process, that changed everything. Because I don't need to take that junk on anymore. That is their junk. So I appreciate you so much saying that. And share your name with me. I'm so glad to have you joining me. That was on YouTube. So, you know, understand that we can be silent. And it's a beautiful thing. You do not need to engage. A lot of us feel like we need to explain ourselves. Laura says, how would you respond to the comeback of so you just don't care? Okay. Is there a little bit more context you could give me on that? And if not, that's okay. I'll shoot from the hip. But right off the bat, no, I do care. I do care. I care. But let me see what she has to say. The thing is, when we learn to let them, we regain our power. This was such a revolutionary finding for me. Oh, okay. All right. So when you're not interacting with the drama and it's spoken, so you just don't care. Okay. My response to that would be, you're wrong. I do care a whole lot, but there's a better way to handle all of this. Better way to handle all of this. And I would love to discuss it with you when we can sit down and have a really nice conversation. And you know, so however that fits a setting. But simply put, yes, I really do care, but I don't want to engage in this fashion. Period. And then there's just, I mean, people will fight with themselves. I've experienced that. And it is absolutely, I laugh inappropriately. I laugh when I find things funny, and not everything is always funny to the rest of the world. But internally to me, it is funny because I have disengaged and the battle still goes on. And it's like, I'm not doing that. And it's a choice. We have choices just like they do. And we can choose to rise above. I want you to think about something. And this, I'm sorry that I did not see your name. I was really quickly reading because it goes off my screen really fast. Here's what I want you to picture. You've got a seesaw. Remember the seesaw with the triangle in the center and your piece of wood, and you'd go back and forth depending on the weight on either side. Okay, so you're in the midst of a battle, and you're in that position, and you're silent, but you're taking it all on. And there's a skinny person on this side, and there's you equally weighted on this side, but you're weighing down with all of that weight from the frustration and the anger and the anxiety, and you're down here. But when you say let them, just let them, just whatever, let them. All that heavy weights that are on you and in your heart go away, and you rise up. You rise up and you can look at the situation. And let me tell you, you're going to have to say, they know not what they're doing. They know not what they're doing. They know not what they're doing. Just like you're going to say, let them. Just let them. And you walk away and then it resurfaces. Just let them. I don't want to take this on. Let them. You're up at the top of this. And then when you decide to just enjoy life despite that situation, and you move on and you do something good for yourself, you now bring yourself here because you hit a place where we do feel, I felt sorry for my family. At first I was very frustrated, but again, they knew not what they were doing. It enabled me to get to a stronger place. And then I was in a place of compassion, sadness, just at their dysfunction and knowing that the age they are and they're not going to change. And this is the thing, the only thing on this planet that we can control 100% is ourselves. Completely ourselves. And when we take ownership of that, this is all about how we show up, how we choose to show up. I was thrown under the bus last week by somebody I've been working for, helping, trying to make their lives easier for the last 2 years. And I was pulling the dagger out of the back on last week. And I was just like, wow, I don't believe that just happened. And because I don't have this encounter all the time, I processed and I had to remind myself that, I need to feel my emotions. I need to feel that. I was angry. I was bothered because the way I was thrown under the bus, my integrity was at risk. So I thought, but you got to remember, other people see your character. If you are showing up consistently all the time and you are a pleasant, good person that looks out for others and really cares, and you do things in a very upright manner, people see that. So when one person throws you under the bus, whether it's for self-preservation, whether it's for just that they are so over the top, full of anxiety themselves, that they aren't even thinking straight anymore, we've got to, let them. Just let them do their dysfunction. Let them show who they are and walk tall. And so I processed my emotions. I spoke about it. I wrote about it. I let it go. And I praise Papa for giving me the ability to move on. And then I realized, well, if I back away from this scenario, think about all the time I will have to do the things I love to do that are going to move me forward. Like, start thinking about these things. Okay, Jenna, when my husband brings an issue with me and I feel like it doesn't quite understand my perspective in the past, okay, I got to hang on one second. That's on YouTube. I want to read the rest of that. I'm sorry, I don't have my iPad today because I have it packed. I have a day ahead of me here. I want to see what she said. So I'm just going to do that real quick on my computer so that I can respond to this. And I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you all being transparent, vulnerable, sharing, asking questions. You know, this all matters. Okay, I'm going to get a repeat sounding going on here in a second, but I'm going to pause it. Okay, so she says, when my husband brings an issue with me and I feel like he doesn't quite understand my perspective, in the past I've tried to calmly explain my perspective and he always thinks he has the answer. And that's where when we're quiet, it diffuses. And it's okay. It's okay that we are misunderstood. We're going to be misunderstood. And a lot of times when people are in that place of, and here's the other thing, there is a correct way. Okay, there's a correct way to fight and an incorrect way to fight. And I know that sounds really crazy. And it boils down to conversation. It's learning to give each other the floor and learning to try to look past our own space where we're at to try to understand the other person. But a lot of times in a heated space, that's never going to be accomplished. That's never going to be accomplished because people are fired up and they're responding from the hip, where when we just quiet it down, and you know, I've been known to say already, you know, we are not doing anything constructive right now. Let's just, you know, walk away. Let's pray about it. Let's check back in and let's try having this conversation later. You know, we can make efforts to do things the right way and to handle things in a better way. That's not always received, and that's okay, but we can diffuse by just not getting involved in the drama, not getting pulled into the drama. So she says, my problem is I know his past responses when I try to talk out or differing perspectives on things. He's a person who always wants to force his opinion as fact. That was how he survived as a child. Okay, and so that's old trauma coming up. So this could be where you have that teaching moment and you are able to teach him a different way. Let me read what else she says. I understand why he's like this. His father was very oppressive and he had to fight this out as a child. He's healing from that, but the past 15 years of marriage has taken a toll on how I respond. Sure, because in that process, you're being beaten down, trying to share your perspective. So here's my thoughts on that, because I get that. I was misunderstood as a kid, and anytime I tried to share my perspective as well, you know, it wasn't pretty, and that is a hard place to overcome in regard to, in the regard that people don't always have the tools. I was very blessed because I was on a mission to heal, and I was on a mission to overcome, and I was on a mission to not be defined by my past, by those hurts. I wanted to be bigger than it all. And I was seeking Papa, and Papa was feeding me. So I learned how to overcome these things. The enemy plays a big role in this also, because he will use every opportunity to use that for both of you. So keeping that in mind is really important. And this is going to sound crazy, but, you know, the silence is a beautiful thing in that you can just choose to be silent, and it's okay that you're misunderstood, and you might find another opportunity to share your perspective, but maybe at that moment, it's not the time. The other thing is, and this is the crazy part, because I'm sure after 15 years, this is going to sound really absurd. But when you can come to that space from a place of love, it's really an understanding that his battles are fought as a 9 or 10-year-old. Because that's where he's at. That's what he knew. That's what he's learned, and he doesn't know how to disengage from that, and he doesn't know how to share. He has been okay with my silence because he got to win every argument, but now he's waking up, healing himself. So let me read the rest. Now seeing the physical negative manifestations, we're changing how we resolve conflict. Well, very awesome. So see, you may not think, okay, so this is a really great point. And I want you to just think about this. Your silence, look what your silence accomplished. And yes, he may be on a healing path and he may be learning this, but he's also going to learn that your silence wasn't him winning. That silence was you disengaging from keeping something going that didn't need to. So, but my emotional response is still silence. I literally cannot respond. It's like my mind has been trained to shut off. Well, if I were to work on that, what I would do is, in place of the silence, I would ask Papa to give you pleasant, positive words to speak in place of silence. You know, sometimes we need to be the teachers. And sometimes we need to let them think they're right and keep your peace and joy. Because eventually they will see your perspective. As he's healing, you know, there is a good chance that the words "I'm sorry" will surface for you, because he is learning how he has been showing up and how he's coming to the table and how Papa's working. Papa's working. So don't lose sight of that, and be proud of you. But also, if your brain is shutting down because of the emotional suppression, you can resurface that. You can rebuild that. And of course, that is going to take Papa's help. And the other thing I want to recommend is, when you guys are in the heat of a moment and there's stuff like that going on, I want to remind you that under your breath, you can say, "Enemy, kiss my wind. Go pound sand and leave in the name of Jesus Christ, and watch what happens." I'll tell you what, when things transitioned from me trying to share my perspective and my thoughts, men speak men, women speak women. There is a line in the middle, and at that point, when that line severs, they hear, they do not hear what we are saying. It's like Charlie Brown's teacher, I promise you. I often make it a point to share my perspective in other settings where I can display it and share it and show it, and it's not part of the chaos. Because I know as well, just in my own marriage and with my children, how there's visible disconnects. And my son being high-functioning autistic was a really good lesson for me, because I learned to pay attention to the disconnects. And when there's a disconnect happening, whether it's with my husband, whether it's with my son, That disconnect is going to keep you from moving forward or having a decent conversation until you resolve the disconnect. So what did I say that they're not understanding, or what are, and it's learning to have conversations. We can have conversations that are about concerning things without fighting. But most people are taught to fight. And even with this let them and let me, most people, when they're violated, they feel like they need to express themselves and help people to understand that that's not the way. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. If you know in your heart that you didn't do anything wrong and that you were doing something to help somebody and they saw differently, that's because of where they are in their heart is, not where you are. So explaining to them is like talking to a telephone pole. It's like they're not going to understand anyway. So let them think that about you, because you know what? They're not your people. Your people get you. Laura gets me to such a degree that she knows what words I'm trying to say when I can't. So, there's a difference between our people and not our people. Our spouses are our people, but we come to the table with baggage. We come to the table with trauma. We come to the table with hurts. Most, 99.9% of the population does not know how to handle those hurts, how to overcome those hurts, how to change what's been ingrained. Some people don't even know it's been ingrained. Some people despise the way their parents have behaved and yet don't realize they're behaving just like them. So we can be great teachers. And that is the place that I decided to take on, is I chose out of love to share my heart and to share there were better ways and different ways. And that has served me really well. And Jenna, my heart goes out to you. That's a hard spot to be in. That really, really is. And I hope you don't think that I was trying to make your situation any lighter. I was just trying to give you some feedback on some things that have worked for me, and also just some things that I'm aware of. Breath work is a beautiful tool. You're very welcome, sweet friend. Breath work is a very great tool to calm the nervous system and to help chip away at trauma. Jenna, reach out to me at support@faithledhealing.com, and I would love to bless you with a session, because it'll help you to process where you're at right now as far as feeling shut down. We shouldn't feel shut down, but we do allow those things to happen. And I totally get why you said what you said right from the very beginning. Silence can be a very beautiful tool, but if we allow it to suppress us, it's not a beautiful tool. So there are things that we can put together with the silence, and that is also learning how to nurture ourselves, how to keep ourselves in a healthy place despite maybe the poor place someone close to us is in. So let me read through the comments here. In a marriage, we can't leave, but we can take breaks. Right. When it's a calmer time, saying, I value your opinion, but I want you to value and validate my thoughts, even if you don't always agree. So will you hear me out? That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful, Vicki. And that's it. When we can walk away from those heated moments and then return to them in a clearer way, and even in your circumstance, not knowing the conversation, just a day or two later, I was trying to figure out the right words and I just couldn't the other day. And I'd really like to share something with you. Can I share this with you to try to help you understand where I was coming from? We can, and you know what? If the answer is no, or anger spikes, let them. Just let them. And keep yourself healthy. Keep yourself well. Do something good. Do understand that you are not defined by that. Understand that you tried to do something useful and it wasn't received, and that's okay. Let them, but take care of you. So she could tell him, I hear you, I feel your pain. Can we talk about what is really at the core of this later? Right now we have a misunderstanding. And that's beautiful too. Absolutely. 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 Even the disciples misunderstood Jesus at times. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he rebuked them a couple times because of it. You know, they just totally were missing the point. And when we can learn to come to the table and have constructive conversations. And also, you know, I love what Laura said as well, in that, you know, I hear you, I feel your pain. You know, that's really important to validate somebody who has experienced some immense trauma. And you know, that's what we're seeking as well in those moments, is just to feel their understanding. And I think that's why we all hurt the most, is because when we are misunderstood, it hurts our hearts because that's not what we said, but that's what they received. And we can't control that. We can't control that. Whether that's because of their trauma, whether that's because of how angry they are at the time, we can't control that. But we can control how we show up, and we can control how we react. We can also control what we do when we realize that we are in a bad place because of suppression. You know, there are tools. And when I talk about this all the time in with my clients, when we have our tool belt full of all kinds of resources and tools that we can use, they're there for the taking and to fall back on. And, you know, going for a walk, getting out in nature, talking to Papa, pulling in, praying to him. You know, the only person that can change somebody else is God. And that can be through our prayers. That can be through them meeting with Papa in their own time. But our prayers are one of the most powerful tools. And, you know, Miss Vicky had shared something with me the other day, and it's so true. You know, and that's exactly what I did for my parents. And that's exactly what I do for my daughter, is I lift them in prayer. I pour prayers down on them. And, you know, that is one of the most powerful things we can do, because that enables us to stay in a good place. But it invokes the power, miraculous power of Jesus in their lives. And only Papa can change them. We can't. You know, we can talk to them, we can love them, we can share our hearts with them, we can have fun with them, but we can't change them. We can teach sometimes, that can be changing, and teaching is just by us showing up in a really wholesome way. And that can be one of the best teaching lessons there are, is that we just continue to show up in a loving way despite what we might be receiving. And that's important. So let me... Okay, so Miss Vicky says the breath work is a life-giving session. Thank you, sweet lady. Leading with the word I instead of you is excellent, like Tammy said. Yeah, very much so, because when we say you, that's all they hear. Or all the time. I had that with my son, and I've had that with my husband. You know, what we mean is, what's a good analogy? You know, like my son might have done something one time, and I said, you know, every time or all the time came out, and, you know, that just blows things, because they're then hurt because they only did it once, not all the time. You know, so that's the other good point. Everybody's got a trigger word. So pay attention to the trigger words and just don't use them. Just don't use them. But that's very true. You know, when we can share from our perspective instead of pointing fingers just escalates things. And silence isn't out of ignorance. My silence is just not, is in an effort to keep it from escalating, and to keep it, and to not pull into drama that I know is, we all know that circular drama that just never ends. And I hate drama. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So there is a time and a place for everything. And as you learn to show up in a different way, all of us, like, we can all learn to show up in a different way. We can all, and we all have trauma. We all have baggage, regardless if we had a good life or not. I really believe that. We all have some sort of baggage that's going to show itself, rear its ugly head. And, you know, one of the greatest gifts we can give each other in our marriage, in our friendships even, is understanding. Understanding where they're coming from, understanding that we need to be heard, understanding that we have things that need to be felt, understanding that we need to show compassion and love. You know, we all are seeking a lot of the same thing. We just might need it in a different way. One of the things I think I need to talk about upcoming is the love languages, because I've thought of that so many times, because and I'll just briefly mention this. And some of you may be aware of this, but there's a good test you can take so that you can determine your love language. And there's like 5 love languages. And let's just say that your spouse likes service, but you like conversation. And because he likes service, he's serving you. And because you like conversation, that's what you're doing. So neither one of you are being nurtured with the thing you need the most. He needs service, and so making him cookies and acknowledging the things he's doing, and then, you know, if he wants to really hone in on your love language, if your love language is just communication, then he might choose to sit down with you and just talk to you about what you're doing and nurture you for a few minutes. It's amazing how just a simple 15 minutes of time spent with doing their love language can change everything, you know. But most people are giving their spouse their own love language, not what they need. So I am gonna do something on that. We'll do that next week. Let me see here. All of these are great ideas, but it will take a few times of using them to see a difference. But with time and prayer, what you are sharing will sink in. And you know what? It's like riding a bike. And it is a skill that I think we should all work on, because we are always going to feel violated in one way or the other, whether it's from the world, whether it's from some crazy person on the street, whether it's in our 4 walls. There are times we're going to feel violated, but when we can be bigger than those violations, and I want you to think about this, that's the enemy. Really, in all costs. When there's negativity in our environment, in our world, in our experiences, that's the enemy finding a foothold, whether with you or the other person. It doesn't matter, but that's just it, Laura. It's no different than riding a bike. The more we practice, the better we get. And you get on a bike right now and you haven't ridden one for 10 years, you're going to know how to do it, right? So these are tools in our tool belt. And truly, we need to utilize our tools so that we can. The main thing we need to focus on is not allowing people to steal our power, which in turn steals our peace and joy. When we can keep our peace and joy at all times, life is really, really amazing. It doesn't mean that we won't have conflict. It just means in the conflict, we are able to armor up and protect ourselves in a way that we can be present and we can support, but we don't need to lose our joy and our power. And that goes for all, you know, men and women. You know, this conversation is not just geared for women, but that's who we are talking about with today. But this is true for men too, because the other side of this, you know, the flip of everything we've been talking about today could be something that a man is experiencing. I know some men that have been experiencing the flip side of this. So, you know, these tools are universal. I highly recommend reading the book. Let Them is a really great book. And it's so funny because, like I said, I've been sharing the same terminology with you guys for years. You know, they know not what they do, and I've been encouraging you guys to hang on to your power and how to go about doing that. I just didn't have the scientifically back let them and let me, and you know, that could be let him, let her, you know, whatever. But the thing is, the let me part is really the important part. Is when we can keep going in life despite those let them moments, that we can keep our joy and our happiness. And that's, you guys know me well. That's one thing I do not, I guard not so much my power, but my joy and my peace. And in guarding my joy and my peace and my comfort, I keep my power. So one and the same, you know, when we are, and you guys know I do that. Like, I don't allow people to steal those things from me, you know, and it's a life lesson. Things take time, and Jenna, don't lose heart. Please email me, support@faithledhealing.com. It's faith and then LED healing.com. I would love to chat more with you and get you on a breathwork session, because I know it'll nurture you tremendously. So I'm going to jump off of YouTube. Jenna, I will be keeping you and your husband in my prayers. And I keep all of our community in our prayers, but I will specifically be lifting prayers for you. Thank you for being vulnerable today. Thank you for sharing. That was really powerful. And Vicki says, you've taught me that over 2 years. Guard your peace. Absolutely. Guard our peace. You know, the enemy wants to steal it, and we can hang on tight to it. We just need to learn these skills, learn these tactics, learn these things that are built in. You know, we just and it takes courage, it takes strength, and that's something that we can glean from Papa, because when we're weak, he is strong. So remember these things. But Miss Jenna, I'm going to jump off of here. Have a blessed day. And all of you on the other YouTubes, I'm going to pray with my Zoom community here. So God bless you guys.